Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tamali's classes, where knowledge is for all. In today's class, I'll be talking about the composition, structure, and function of biomolecules. And in biomolecules, today I'll be talking about the carbohydrates. So before we talk about carbohydrates, first let's know what are biomolecules. So biomolecules are those chemical compounds which are present in our body, in the body of living organisms, and they are composed of those compounds which contains certain elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, then nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. So these elements are present in these biomolecules. So what do these biomolecules do? So basically, they form the structure of our body. They provide energy to our body, and they also perform very vital functions, or you can say important functions in our body. Okay. So among those biomolecules, first let's talk about the types of biomolecules. So in biomolecules, there are two types, macro and micro. Stick to the end of the class, till the end of the class, because I will share something very important uh, knowledge with you about carbohydrates, information with you, and I am sure it will be very, very helpful for you. So let's continue. So biomolecules are of two types, macromolecules and micromolecules. See, biomolecules. So bio means living. Molecules means the compounds which are present in the living organisms. So macro and micro. Macro means the large size ones, and micro means small size ones. So in macromolecules, again there are two. Again, I've divided into two points. Number one is the size and structure. Okay, so you can see it's a large size. Also, the molecular weight is higher than those of the macromolecules. Okay, and if you see the weight out here, see the micromolecules is 18 to 800 daltons and macro is above 1000 daltons. This is the basic difference between the macro and micro. Now, if we talk about the types of macromolecules, in macro we have four types: carbohydrate, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And in micromolecules we have such as nucleotides, water, then some sugars, nucleotides, and amino acids, minerals. So these are all present in the micromolecule. So today in this class, we'll talk about the carbohydrates, and later in my later classes, next classes, I'll be talking about the other biomolecules. Okay. So first of all, carbohydrates, structure, sources, function, and types. So first, let's start with the important, or you can say the interesting part. So what are the sources of carbohydrates? So in our daily life, we consume many uh, food which are the sources of carbohydrates. Very simple ones are that you consume, such as bread, you consume uh, rice, you consume sugar, right? You consume fruits, vegetables. Also, you consume milk. Even animal products have carbohydrates such as milk. Okay, contains lactose, which is a disaccharide. So these are the sources of the carbohydrates, and structure is CH2O. Okay, so CH2 is a basic structure, and N means depends on the type of sugar. If it's a monosaccharide, disaccharide, or polysaccharide, okay. So based on that, the N is filled in the structure. You can see here in the structure that I've given the formula out here. You can see here in this part. Okay. So CH2. This is the basic structure, and then this N. N stands for the number, okay, number of sugar molecules. If it's a mono, it's one. If it's disaccharide, then two. Okay, depending on that. So sources. So let's go to the sources part. One more thing. Carbohydrate name. The name of the carbohydrate. You can see the name out here. Carbo means carbon. Hydrate means water. Okay. So the name itself says when carbon is attached. Okay. When carbon is attached with water molecules such as hydrogen and oxygen. So then it forms the carbohydrates. Now let's go on to the sources part. In sources, see, I have given out here some examples. You can see vegetables are here. The right hand side, you can see sugar is here. Okay. Then cereals. See, cereals are the most important, and they are the basic sources of carbohydrates. Cereals are very, very important. Okay. You can see here cereals are there. Then your sugar is there. Then vegetables are here. Then these are again, see, pulses are here. Vegetables, milk. Okay. So these are all some, sorry, there are fruits out here. There are fruits is here. And these are the vegetables are here. Okay. and this is the fruits part. So these are all the sources of carbohydrates that you eat daily in your life. So now we'll talk about the structure of carbohydrates. So basically, structure of carbohydrates depend on the number of sugars present. Okay. So first we'll talk about the monosaccharides, which is the glucose and fructose. So here you can see that you can see the structure out here. In the first part out here, I'll just show you. So here you can see this is the D-glucose, L-glucose. So D-glucose is dextro rotatory glucose, and L-glucose is the levorotatory. Okay. So dextro means what? The rotation is towards the right hand side, and levo means the rotation is towards the left hand side. Okay. So here you can see difference out here. See, this OH is on the left hand side, this OH is on the right hand side. So basically they are enantiomers. What is enantiomers? It is they are the mirror images. If you put a mirror in center, you can see they both look same. Okay. They both look same if you put it in front of the mirror. Okay. Just there's a difference in the OH group. Okay, the portion of the OH group. This is D-glucose and L-glucose, dextro and levoglucose. Next, we'll come to the types of monosaccharides, that is the glucose and fructose. So glucose and fructose both are having same molecular formula. They both are isomers, but the difference here is the presence of the certain compound, that is the out here see the group, certain group. In glucose we have the aldehyde group CHO, or you can say aldose, and in fructose we have the ketone group, also known as the ketose. Okay, so the glucose contains aldehyde group and fructose contains ketose group. This is the difference between the two isomers. Both are monosaccharides. Now coming to the disaccharides. Disaccharides out here is lactose. You can see lactose. Okay, then you have maltose and sucrose. See why they're known as disaccharides? Because they contain two sugars. If sucrose is broken down, it will form glucose and fructose. See, glucose and fructose. Now, if lactose is broken down, it will form two sugars, galactose and glucose. And if maltose is broken down, it will form glucose and glucose. That means two glucose, two molecules of glucose. Okay, so that's why they're known as disaccharides. Di means two. Okay, and mono means one. So if two sugars are present, disaccharides. Glucose, this you should remember this, that glucose forms glucose and fructose, lactose forms galactose and glucose, and maltose forms glucose and glucose, and two molecules of glucose. Okay. Now moving on to the polysaccharides. In polysaccharides, the examples are cellulose, then chitosan, glycogen. These are all the polysaccharides. Okay. So in you can see the structure out here. I've given a structure out here. See, in glycogen, there is two bond alpha 1,6 glycosidic link. One thing I'll mention you right now, I didn't mention you in my previous slide, is that these sugars, when two or more sugars are present, then they are bind together, or you can say they are linked together by a glycosidic bond. Okay, so remember this very important. Glycosidic bond links two or more sugars together. Okay, now sometimes there are two or three type of linkages, or you can say link. We see in glycogen, we can see here alpha 1,6 glycoside link and alpha 1,4 glycosidic link. Okay, so alpha 1,4 glycoside link, this is digested by the mammalian enzymes. Okay, but the ones which are 1,6, they are not digested by the mammalian enzymes. And also this glycoside, this 1,4 glycosidic link, this linkage, they are resistant to digestion. Okay, so understood this much part. Remember one thing, this glycogen when it's present in the human body is present in the muscles and liver. Okay, so humans, they contain glycogen in muscles and liver. So this sugar is stored inside the human body in the form of glycogen, and you know that in plants it is stored in the form of starch. Okay, remember that in plants it's stored in the form of starch, cellulose, and in the humans it's stored in the form of glycogen. Okay, and they are polysaccharides. Now see, I've just given you a short summary of the type of carbohydrates out here. The summary for you. See, the monosaccharides, they cannot be hydrolyzed as they're only single sugar, so they cannot be further broken down. For example, I've already told you glucose, fructose, and galactose. Disaccharides, I already told you disaccharides when they are broken down, they are forming two sugars. Okay, they form two molecules of sugars. Now the sugars can be same, just like maltose, or it can be different, just like sucrose, and they are joined by the linkage which is known as the glycosidic linkage. I told you that also. The examples also I've given you. Number 3 is polysaccharides. They contains three or three to more than three, okay, sugar molecules. And again, The examples I've given you: glycogen, cellulose, all these things. So now, depending on groups present in the sugars, in the carbohydrates, again, carbohydrates can be of two types: aldose and ketose. I already told you glucose is an aldose because it contains aldehyde group, and fructose is a ketose because it contains a ketone group. Okay. The other examples of aldose are mannose and galactose because they also contain the aldehyde group. So these fructose, they are present primarily in some of the fruits such as apple, figs, and all. And you know sugar, glucose, where it's present, right? In many products, glucose is present. Okay. There's one example, sugar cane. Okay. So other fruits are also the mango, other sweet products and sweetened food, they contain glucose. Now, type of then again another type of carbohydrates is non-sugars. In previously we learned about the sugar, now the non-sugars. In non-sugars, or you can also say polysaccharides, they are of two types: homopolysaccharides or heteropolysaccharides. Hetero means understood, different type, and homo means same type. Okay. Now in homopolysaccharides, there are two type: storage and structure. Very important. Remember that I already told you about plant containing glucose and animal containing glycogen, right? So they are coming under the storage because they are stored in the humans and plant in this form, in the glucose and glycogen form. And structural is in plant, you have read about the cellulose, okay, the present in cell wall. I have already told you. So cellulose is present in plant, and in animal chitin is present in cell wall. Okay. So in animal cells chitin is present, in plant cell cellulose is present, and they are the structural polysaccharides because they are help in the structural of maintaining the structure of the plant or the animal. Okay. And in heteropolysaccharides, we have the hyaluronic acid, heparin, chondroitin sulfate, keratin sulfate. So these are all some of the polysaccharides that are present in the some are present in the animals. Okay. You know about hyaluronic acid. You have heard about the name. So heteropolysaccharides are also there. So this is the non-sugar part. Now, coming of the importance of polysaccharides. So, polysaccharides, as we know, they are the energy sources. They are the primary energy sources. Yes, proteins and fats are also there. So, carbohydrates, protein, fats, these three, they form the energy part. But the main energy part, carbohydrates. And why carbohydrates, I'll tell you in my next slide. Okay. So, they are the energy sources. Number two, they are the marker of cellular identity. As I've already told you that polysaccharides in that some non-sugars, they form the not non-sugars, the oligosaccharides, that is their um, glycogen. Okay. So these are all present. So they are present in the surface of cells of multicellular organs. As we can say that um, that if chitin is present, it's an animal cell. Okay. Then if it contains glycogen, then it is an animal cell. If it's a starch, it's a plant cell. So there are some of the compounds are they they identify they identify the type of the organisms, or you can say they identify their yes, they identify the cell. Okay. Type of cell, like animal cell or plant cell. So they can also be known as the called as the markers. Okay. Also structural components. I already told you cellulose and chitin. Okay, they form the structural part out here. Constituents of nucleotides. Ribose in RNA. We say ribonucleic acid because it contains ribose. Okay, ribose sugar. So ribose is in an RNA. Then in DNA we call it as deoxyribonucleic acid. So it contains deoxyribose. So these carbohydrates, they form the constituents of nucleotides. Okay. Next is that and this they control the blood glucose level. Okay. So basically this is another function of carbohydrates. They control the blood glucose and insulin metabolism. How do they control? Again, I will tell you in my next slide. And also they provide the dietary fiber because the carbohydrates can be simple or they can be complex. So that also I will tell you in my next slide. Okay, wait for that because there are some very interesting information that I will give you now. Now coming to the interesting facts of carbohydrates. So number one is that, are you consuming carbohydrates or not? And if you're not consuming carbohydrates, then why? No, why it is essential for you to consume? See, when as I've already told you, other than carbohydrates, proteins and um, fats are also giving you energy. But if you are not consuming carbohydrates, what is happening? The body is trying to use the proteins and fats. Now, coming to first the fats part. If the protein is breaking, if the body is using fats as a source of energy, the fats are being broken to ketones. Okay, that means ketosis is occurring out here. then leading to acidosis. That means it's forming acid in your stomach. Okay, it is very very unhealthy. That leads to acidity in your body. It's very very unhealthy. So this is one thing you should take care of. Number two is if the body is using proteins as source of energy. See, proteins are used in our body because they maintain the structure of our body. Also, like they're helping in the damage, okay, repair of the cells, then in controlling the damage of these cells. So when you're using protein, then what is happening? This function of the protein, the protective function or the structural function is being hampered. Okay, so you're using the protein as source of energy, so you have to take care of, remember that also, that proteins are required for damage repair. If you're using proteins as an energy, as like completely, you're not you are consuming carbohydrates and you're using complete ketones and I mean to say fats and proteins, then you're hampering the other functions that are operating in your body because of the proteins and fats. Okay, so you have to take care of that. Number two is, should you consume simple carbs or complex carbohydrates, complex carbs? See, simple carbs that are easily digested, okay? So they suddenly raise the they suddenly raise the glucose level in the blood because too much glucose is being produced and the blood, they're taking the glucose. So too much blood glucose is being produced. It is leading to formation of more insulin by the blood, okay? So your insulin is rising, sugar is rising, and too much sugar, too much insulin, you know the effect it will uh, like damage your body. It will cause very badly, it will harm your body. Okay, so should not do that. So you can use a complex carbohydrate on the other hand is safe, it's healthy. Why? Because complex carbohydrate is formed with simple sugars, with many simple sugars combined, they form complex carbohydrates. Long chain of sugars, when they are linked together, they form complex carbohydrates. So these complex carbohydrates, they take time to break down. Okay, they, when they break down into glucose, they take some time, and even eventually they are digested very slowly. So what will happen? The blood glucose will rise very slowly. Okay, so it will not uh, cause any harm to your body. Also, your stomach will, as you will feel as if you are filled. You do not need to eat too much. You will not have the craving for sugar or for carbohydrates too much. Okay, so if you consume complex carbohydrates, it will also provide you fiber, like, dietary fiber. So in that way, now you know what to choose. So instead of choosing processed foods like chocolates, processed juices and all these things, so you can move on to the complex carbohydrates. Like you can go for the fruits, vegetables, which are which are containing complex carbohydrates. Okay, so they are take time to digest. Also, they let you stay filled up. Okay, so decreasing your carving for sugar. Now, number three, what carbs are healthy? I've already told you what carbs are healthy. You can go for fruits, vegetables. You can go for, you know, cereals like millets, like barley. You can go for quinoa. Okay, so these are all. You can go for brown rice. You can go for brown sugar. Okay, so these are many things that you can. You should not stop carbohydrates, have carbohydrates because they are very very important for your body, but you should know what to eat among the many carbohydrates that you get in your market, okay, that you bring in your house. Okay, so some of the I told you some of the carbohydrates that you should eat. So I hope you have liked today's class. So choose what you eat and stay healthy and choose good carbohydrates. And thank you for watching till the end. And I hope you have liked the class. If you've liked it, do subscribe to my channel for more such videos, and stay in tune. I'll be uploading my next classes on proteins and vitamins and also other sugars. Okay, so have a very nice day. Thank you so much.